So Donald Trump was asked about his position on Israel again at the most recent Republican debate, and he basically said, look, I'm really, really pro-Israel, I'm on their side, but you have to at least say that you're neutral because I want to make a deal, and the other side can't think he's totally against me because then obviously they're not going to make a deal because they're going to think they're getting fucked because they probably are getting fucked. Well, that, of course, is unacceptable to Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio and the Republican establishment, so this is their response.
We need a president who understands the national security interest of this country. The reason we are friends and allies with Israel is they are a liberal democratic country that share our values. They're our strongest ally in the region. We get billions in intelligence resources, billions in military resources, and the Palestinian Authority that Donald, along with Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, say they want to treat neutrally the same as Israel. The Palestinian Authority is in a unity government with Hamas, a terrorist organization. They pay the families of these terrorists who murder people, and this is exactly the moral relativism Barack Obama has. And the answer is not scream all Muslims bad. Let me give you an example of a Muslim, for example, we ought to be standing with. President al-Sisi of Egypt, a president of a Muslim country who is targeting radical Islamic terrorists. He's hunting them down and stopping them. Our focus needs to be on keeping this country safe.
I want to go back to the Israeli government's assertion that the Palestinian Authority is inciting the convulsion of violence. Do you agree?
Well, that's undeniable. First of all, they've said that they've encouraged people to do so. And you've seen the speeches of the Palestinian Authority president talking about how glorious this is that they're doing these sorts of things. But let me go back for a moment. The policy Donald has outlined, I don't know if he realizes, is an anti-Israeli policy. Maybe that's not your intent, but here's why it is an anti-Israeli policy. There is no peace deal possible with the Palestinians at this moment. There just isn't, because there's no one to negotiate with. The Palestinian Authority is not interested in a serious deal, and they are now in union with Hamas, an organization whose specific purpose is the destruction of the Jewish state. Every time that Israel has turned over territory of any kind, be it Gaza or now in Judea and Samaria, it is used as a launching pad to attack Israel. And that's what will happen again. These groups are not interested in a deal with Israel. What they are interested in is ultimately removing the Jewish state and occupying its entire territory. So maybe in 30 years the conditions will exist, but they do not exist now. And to have a president forcing the Israelis to the table is harmful to Israel and emboldens Israel's enemies.
Mr. Trump, a response.
To have a president force Israel to the table emboldens Israel's enemies. No, to have a president force them to the table, it means they're forcing them to the table to try to get a peace deal. If you don't do that, you're not trying to get a peace deal. Based on everything they're saying there, it's utterly clear they're promising not to get a peace deal. They don't want one. They don't want to try to get one. They have no interest in it because they align with the far right in Israel, and the far right in Israel wants to continue doing what they're doing right now, and they don't want a Palestinian state. They don't want a deal. And notice, as they take that position, what do? They pretend like, it's not me, it's them, it's not me, it's them. I want a peace deal, but they don't want a peace deal. No, but everything you just said shows that you don't want a peace deal. Because you said, I'm not even going to force them to sit down at the table together. Well, then how the fuck am I supposed to take away from that you're in favor of a peace deal? You want the Israeli far right to do whatever the fuck they want and get away with it. And then this idea that, look, you just can't negotiate with them. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Again, it's not me, it's them. You can't negotiate with them. There's just nobody who's reasonable enough to negotiate. Except the Palestinians proposed through Jordan recently at the UN a two-state peace deal where it's 67 borders and you split up Jerusalem. And they said, hey, look, maybe there are a lot of details that we need to work out as well, so let's sit down at the table and talk about it, but that's the general deal. 67 borders, split up Jerusalem, two-state deal. Netanyahu rejected it out of hand. The Israeli right wing said, no, we're not even going to have this conversation, and the fact that you even want to have this conversation means you're anti-Semitic. What the fuck? What the fuck? So this idea of no matter what, you can't negotiate with anybody on the Palestinian side, that's utter bullshit, and it's an excuse to not try to make a deal because they don't want a deal. Isn't it amazing? Donald Trump somehow is the most reasonable on the stage when he says, I'm super duper duper pro-Israel. I'm more pro-Israel than anybody on the stage, but you have to at least say you're neutral to try to get a deal. They're basically saying, well, we don't even want a deal, so fuck off. How grotesque has this party become? They've moved so far to the right that it's now too liberal a position to say, I want a peace deal, but I'm really, really, really pro-Israel. That's not allowed. So, also, I love how they talk about how bad Hamas is. Yeah, we all agree with that. But what do they leave out? They love to, oh my God, Hamas, far-right, Islamist, crazy. That's all totally true. But funny how they don't have the same condemnation for the far-right settlers and the Jewish Home Party and the people who say on the Israeli side, we want all of the land because it's part of our holy book and our religion. Somehow, crickets on that. The Israeli far-right that wants all the land, the settlers, not condemning them, but Hamas, oh my God, condemn. No, see, rational people condemn both. They condemn the settlers, they condemn the Jewish Home Party. They condemn the fact that only 7% of settler terrorism it gets an indictment, never mind a conviction. So when the Jewish settlers do the attack, the Israeli right-wing government goes, oh, we're so against this. This is so horrible. Whoops, I didn't prosecute, and they got away with it, and now they're continuing to do more settlements. Did I let that slip through? But again, they don't care about that because they're on the side of the Israeli far right wing. They're only against the Palestinian far right wing. See, people that make sense are actually against both right wings. And then notice, the only time that the term occupation got brought up, it was Marco Rubio saying the Palestinians want to take all the land and occupy Israel. So as there's an occupation going on right now that Israel is doing to the Palestinians, as there's an apartheid state, he's concerned of the opposite thing that's not the case. That, oh my God, these Palestinians want to occupy Israel. Yeah, Hamas, the far right, wants all the land. Guess what? The Jewish Home Party and the Israeli far right wants all the land. They're both wrong! That's why you need a peace deal! But again, they're against that. They're like, whatever, just let Likud, another right-wing Israeli party, just run roughshod, let Netanyahu do whatever the fuck he wants. And then finally, Ted Cruz really showed how wretched this position is there. Because he said, yeah, we stand with Israel because they are a liberal democracy. So that's why we stand with Israel. But notice, what's baked into that comment? If you say you're a liberal democracy, and you are to an extent a liberal democracy, well, then you're allowed to do things that are the opposite of liberal democratic values because you called yourself a liberal democracy. Oh, isn't that precious? Have your cake and eat it too. That's Ted Cruz. Okay? Israel, liberal democracy, so they're allowed to do occupation and do apartheid and oppress Palestinians and keep them down, but at liberal democracy, liberal values, so in the name of liberal values, I will do illiberal values and pretend like if you critique me, you must be an anti-Semite, you must be a bad person, you must be with Hamas. Shitty, bullshit, nonsense tactics. These guys don't want peace, and they're letting you know it.